The 2024 election is now just 2 weeks away. We're entering the final stretch, and with time running out, Kamala Harris's polling numbers continue to come crashing down. Meanwhile, Trump is surging in nearly every single recent survey. Today, I'll be updating my 2024 electoral map prediction, and I'm going to fill in the map based on poll closing order to simulate how the map is actually going to color in red and blue on November 5th. We'll begin at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where voting will end in 6 states. These are the first 6 races that will be called. Collectively, they make up a total of 60 electoral votes. So even after this, we have quite a long way to go. I'm going to begin by filling in the solid states for both candidates. Donald Trump is easily going to win Indiana, Kentucky, and South Carolina. These are all solid red states from the last 2 elections, while Kamala Harris is going to carry Vermont, the most liberal state in the country. Virginia and Georgia are going to be more competitive, though, although looking at 2020 results, you would be pretty surprised to hear this. Virginia actually voted for Joe Biden by a whopping double-digit margin in the last election. Joe Biden won it by the largest margin for any Democrat in nearly 4 decades. However, today, Kamala Harris is on track to win the state by 4 points based on the polls. If you consider the fact that polls always overestimate Democratic support, she's probably going to win the state by just 2. Virginia is more competitive than it's been in any election going all the way back to 2004. Republicans have a real shot, but as of right now, Kamala Harris does still maintain a very slight advantage, and so the state is going to be lean Democrat on our map. Trump is on track to win Georgia, though, another state that Biden carried in the last election. It was actually the closest state on the map. He won it by less than a quarter of a percentage point. Today, though, Trump leads in the polling in Georgia by 1.8%. He is the clear favorite. Polling in Georgia does slightly overestimate Democratic support basically every single time. However, they are relatively accurate, especially compared to many of the other battlegrounds. And so Trump is going to win Georgia back, considering the polling as well as previous voting trends. He's probably going to carry it by around 3 to 4 points. Georgia is actually a state that Trump won by 5 points back in 2016. And so after the first poll closing of the night, Donald Trump will be at 44 electoral votes, taking an early lead. Kamala Harris trails with just 16. Fast forward 30 minutes, at 7:30 p.m., voting will close in Ohio, West Virginia, and North Carolina. Together, they make up 37 of the Electoral College's 538 votes. We're going to begin in West Virginia, where Trump is easily going to win, while in Ohio, he leads by around 10 points in the polling. He won the state by 8% in both of the last 2 elections. He first flipped it in 2016 and then carried it by the exact same margin against Joe Biden in 2020. There's no doubt Trump will carry the Buckeye State for a 3rd time. It's going to be likely Republican. He'll win it by at least a double-digit margin. And then in North Carolina, this is the second of the 7 battleground states, and just like every other one, Donald Trump holds a lead in the polling average. He's ahead by 0.5, but polls here have been known to heavily underestimate support for Trump. He's probably going to win it by around the same margin as Georgia. It's going to be a 3 to 4 point race in favor of the GOP. In fact, North Carolina is the only swing state that voted for Trump in both 2016 and 2020. Republicans are probably going to lose the governorship in the Tar Heel state with Mark Robinson as their nominee, but it's not going to affect Trump too much on the presidential level. He is practically a shoo-in in North Carolina. He is going to win the race by a lean margin. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we have the largest poll closing of the night, where voting will end in 16 states as well as the District of Columbia. Together, they make up 171 electoral college votes. This is going to be a consequential point for both campaigns, as voting will end in the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. We also have important races in Florida, New Hampshire, and Maine. I'm going to begin by filling in the safe states first. Trump is easily going to win Oregon, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. He's going to dominate down south, while Kamala Harris is going to carry Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, and the District of Columbia by safe margins, while Illinois, New Jersey, and Delaware are going to be likely. Kamala Harris is still going to win them, but by lesser margins of 7 to 15 points. Before we continue, nearly 70% of you guys are not subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and join my Discord server to chat with me personally. Link in the description below. We're going to continue on now up in the Northeast with New Hampshire and Maine, two races that Kamala Harris is the slight favorite in. Now, Joe Biden won both of these states by likely margins of 7 points or more back in 2020. Obviously, Kamala Harris is no Joe Biden. Joe Biden was a strong nominee 4 years ago. He would have been a disaster this time around, but in 2020, he really was the best candidate that the Democratic Party could have put up. In 2024, though, Kamala Harris is far from the best. She is only the nominee because Joe Biden dropped out of the race so late. She would never have been able to win a primary nomination in her own right. And so we're going to begin up in the Northeast, where New Hampshire and Maine are both going to be lean blue. Democrats are still favored here, but Harris is going to severely underperform Biden's performance from 4 years ago. And then in the 1st District of Maine, the vice president will carry that by a safe margin, while the 2nd District is going to be likely for Trump. Down in Florida, the state is a relic of what it once was. It used to be one of the top battlegrounds on the map, but today it is one of the most conservative states in the country. Ron DeSantis, as governor, won his re-election by a whopping 19 points. Now, the presidential race is going to be closer, but Trump will be able to win it by 7 points or more. I mean, just look at 2016 against Hillary Clinton. Nobody thought Trump would be able to win Florida. He carried it by 1.2. In 2020, once again, people doubted him. People thought Biden would flip the state back. Trump actually expands off of his margin from the previous election. Today, he's going to do the same thing. He's probably going to double his performance from last time. He's going to win Florida by just over 7%. It's going to be likely red on this map. And then finally, in Pennsylvania, we have another solid victory for Donald Trump. It's a state he lost in the last election by just over 1%, but he was the first Republican to win the state since 1988 when he carried it back in 2016. It was a historic victory for the GOP. In fact, look at the map from 2012 to 2016. When Obama won his 2nd term, the Midwest was basically entirely blue. 4 years later, Trump transforms the region, and it is now dominated by Republicans, especially the state legislatures. And so looking at Pennsylvania polling today, Trump leads by 0.8%. There's no doubt he is on track to win. It is going to be a strong performance from the former president, winning a state he won 8 years ago. And then looking at the national popular vote, this is yet another sign that Trump is going to dominate in the swing states. He actually leads in 4 of the last 5 national polls. This has never happened before. In 2016, Clinton led by 6.4. In 2020, Biden led by 8.6. Today, Kamala Harris leads by 0.9, and her lead continues to shrink every single day. And so on our map, Pennsylvania is going to be lean for Trump. He is going to win it by just over 2 points, and that likely will be enough to actually get him over the finish line when we have all of the other states remaining. But of course, he's performing so well that we have other prizes on top of that. We have 4 remaining swing states where he is also crushing it. At 8:30 p.m., voting will end in just the state of Arkansas. Obviously, Trump is going to win it. This puts him at 180 electoral votes. Kamala Harris not even at 100 yet. Next up at 9 p.m., we have another big poll closing. Voting is ending in states as far east as New York and as far west as Arizona. Together, they make up 163 of the Electoral College votes. We're going to begin with the solid red states first. Trump is easily going to win Wyoming, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except its 2nd district, as well as Kansas and Louisiana. The remaining states, though, are going to be significantly more competitive. New York has been a solid blue state in every election since 1992. However, today, Kamala Harris is on track to win it by just around 13 points. It is going to be a disastrous performance for the Democrats, considering Joe Biden carried the Empire State by 23 points in the last election. We also want to get Iowa out of the way. Trump is obviously going to win it. He's going to win it by just under 10 points. It's going to be another dominant performance for Trump in the lower Midwest. He's going to win it by a similar margin to Ohio. And then in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, Kamala Harris has to win all 3 of these states. I do still have her winning Minnesota by just over 2 points. She chose Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, to be her running mate. He hasn't really helped her out too much. She's leading by 4 points in the polls. Joe Biden even won Minnesota by 7 points in the last election. Walz isn't having the impact that Kamala Harris wanted. She is losing in all the other Midwestern races. Her campaign is going to crumble if she can't win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, 3 states Joe Biden carried. carried. She's already lost Pennsylvania, and she's not looking too good in Wisconsin or Michigan either. We'll begin in Wisconsin, where Trump leads by 0.2% in the polling average. It is a very close margin, and Walz probably has helped Harris to some extent in the state, but Wisconsin is a state that Trump has always outperformed expectations in. He was supposed to lose it by 8 points to Joe Biden in 2020. He only lost it by 0.6. In 2016, he was supposed to lose it by 5 points. He actually won the state entirely. Wisconsin always surprises the country by how well Trump performs, and 2024 is probably not going to be an exception. He's going to win the state by a lean margin. I have him carrying it by around 3 points. Meanwhile, in Michigan, this is another big state, and it is probably the most difficult swing state for Trump to win because it was the most liberal one back in 2020. Joe Biden won it by 2.8%. No other state was lean except for Nevada, which Biden won by a lesser 2.4% margin. All of the other swing states were decided by 2 percentage points or less. And so if Trump can win Michigan, there's no doubt he is going to win basically all the other battlegrounds. Trump did actually win Michigan, though, in the past. In 2016, he carried it by 0.2%. It was the closest state in the entire country, and it's probably going to be close once again. Trump leads by 1.2% in the polling. I do have the polls underestimating support for the former president once again, just like they have in Wisconsin as well. However, considering that Michigan is the most liberal of all the battlegrounds, I do have Trump winning it by just under a 2-point margin. I believe he'll perform well. He'll win the state, and that's really all that matters. It's going to be a huge symbolic victory for Republicans if they can sweep all 7 of the battlegrounds, but it is going to be close. Trump is going to win it by a tilt margin. Coming down to the Sun Belt, we're going to begin in Colorado and New Mexico. 2 races Biden won by well over double-digit margins 4 years ago. Today, though, Harris is going to win Colorado by just over 7 and New Mexico by just under 7. In Texas, Trump is also going to perform a lot better than he did last time. He won Texas by just 5 points against Joe Biden. He won it by 9 against Hillary Clinton in 2016, and this time around, he's probably going to win the Lone Star State by a double-digit margin. Polls have him leading by around 8 to 10 points, and of course, polls always underestimate Donald Trump. There's no doubt he'll carry Texas for a 3rd time. It's not going to flip blue anytime soon, and it's going to be likely Republican on the map. And then in Arizona, this is the 6th of the 7 swing states we're going to cover. We only have Nevada left, but in Arizona, Trump has also taken a rather large lead. He's ahead by 1.6%. It's another state that Biden won in the last election. Kamala Harris simply isn't going to be able to replicate his success this time around. Biden carried Arizona by 0.3. Trump is probably going to win the state by 3% in less than 2 weeks. Arizona will go back into the Republican column. It's a state that Trump carried by nearly 4 points back in 2016. So Arizona is also going to be lean Republican on the map. At this point, Trump is 6 for 6 of the swing states we filled in so far. We also have the 2nd district of Nebraska left. It's going to go to Kamala Harris. It's going to be close. It's probably going to be lean blue when all the votes are counted. And then an hour later, voting will end in Montana, Utah, and Nevada. Of course, Montana and Utah will be solid for Trump, while in Nevada, this is the state out of all 7 of the battlegrounds that hasn't gone red for the longest period of time. In fact, Trump won all of the other battlegrounds in 2016. He won Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Nevada, though, is a state that hasn't gone red since George W. Bush carried it back in 2004. A Trump victory here would be a big deal. He'd be the first Republican to win Nevada in 20 years. And the polling does suggest he will. He leads by 0.8%, and just like in the other battlegrounds, polls always underestimate support for him. If he can win Nevada and sweep all the battlegrounds, it's going to be a modern-day landslide for the former president. Trump is on track to win Nevada right now, although considering its long Democratic history, I will place it in the tilt Republican column with Michigan, 2 states where I do believe he is going to come out on top just by lesser margins than the other 5 swing states. And then 1 hour before midnight at 11 p.m., voting will end across the Pacific Coast. Kamala Harris is going to win Washington and California by solid margins. Oregon, though, is going to be slightly more competitive. And then Trump is going to easily carry Idaho. And then at midnight on November 6th, Kamala Harris is going to win Hawaii. And then 1 hour later at 1 a.m. in the morning, Trump is going to carry Alaska. And so this is my updated 2024 electoral map prediction. Donald Trump at 312 electoral votes. Kamala Harris at 226. 6, Trump will sweep all 7 of the swing states. It's going to be a modern-day landslide for the Republican nominee, as Kamala Harris's campaign continues to crumble with just 2 weeks to go until the election. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and follow me on Twitter for daily political updates. Link in the description below.